which was the site of one of the largest strikes and strike-breaking actions in American industrial history. In 1892, and after breaking the strike violently with the help of scab labor and the Pinkertons, Andrew Carnegie set up a public library for the workers. And in a speech to open the public library, he said, "There's not such a cradle of pure democracy upon the earth as in a free public library. This republic of letters, where neither rank, office, nor wealth receives the slightest consideration, where all men are equal." And this quote gets trotted out quite often in discussions of public libraries and democracy, for example, and the role that public libraries play in democratic institutions. But the piece that's often ignored is the fact that this library was handed to the workers after he had just broken the largest strike that the American labor movement had faced up until then. And one of the historians argued that Carnegie celebrated his victory in Braddock, where the Homestead Steelworks were, by giving his repentant workers a library and calling it a monument to his partnership with them. So this kind of goes against the whole idea of libraries as bastions of democracy or places where all men are equal. Libraries then become sites of political tension, sites of attempts at socio-economic control, and sites of ideological hegemony. So the whole movement of Carnegie building public libraries like the St. John's branch or the Cornish branch in Winnipeg is fraught with these kinds of tensions. They were public services paid for by private money out of an initiative of breaking the strike. We've all seen these placards up before. And what's interesting here is that basically, once the strike had started, it was quickly realized that there was no way for necessities of life to be distributed, so primarily bread and milk, but other things as well. And David Bergeson writes that in a very real sense, the strikers found themselves increasingly responsible for the welfare of the city. They weren't prepared for it. They weren't looking to challenge the constituted authority, but of course that's how it was taken by the citizens and the constituted authorities of the city. And the librarian actually made the decision to stay open because he was approached by teachers. Because even some of the schools in Ferguson had to close, but students and teachers had nowhere to go. So initially, the librarian decided to keep the library open in order to provide a space for some public services to continue. Also, as we can see by this sign, which was the librarian put up right away, the idea that the library was going to be an alternative also to the violence outside. So the library here, Ferguson Public Library, is being constituted as an alternative public service space, but also an alternative to the state violence that was going on outside. So I realize this is a bit long, I won't read the whole thing or anything, but this is from an interview with Scott Bonner, who was the Ferguson librarian, who said that in the week that they opened the library and the school, he offered the library space and put up metaphorical fires, played taskmaster, and the teachers and volunteers made an actual working school. Eventually it spread from the library to the First Baptist Church across the street, and at their peak there were 200 students across both locations. At that point, educational organizations from across St. Louis started trying to help. Money started coming in, volunteers started coming in, and the library began to develop as this alternative public space that was self-determined, that was going on through the self-activity of the teachers and library workers.